3 weeks ago, my wife's phone buzzed during dinner. She glanced at it, and I watched her face go completely blank. Not surprised, not happy, not angry, just empty. She set the phone down without saying anything and continued eating her pasta like nothing had happened. "Who was it?" I asked, though something in my gut already knew. "Her," she said quietly. "She wants to talk. Here." We both knew exactly who that meant. The friend who had tormented my wife for 5 months straight when we first started dating. The one who had turned roommates against her, spread lies about me, and literally told us she hoped our relationship would fail. The one we didn't invite to our wedding, because even thinking about her being there made my wife's hands shake. I watched my wife stare at her food, and I could see her mind racing. After 18 months of silence, after all the therapy sessions where my wife cried about losing her best friend, after all the times I held her while she blamed herself for everything that went wrong, suddenly this person wanted back in. "You don't have to respond," I said. "I know," she replied, but I could already see it in her eyes. She was going to. 3 days later, they were texting constantly. A week after that, they were on the phone every night. By the end of the second week, my wife was laughing at stories about her friend's new job, her dating life, her family drama, like the past 2 years of pain had just evaporated. And now, sitting here at my kitchen table, I'm staring at a text message that makes my blood run cold. "Can't wait to stay with you guys for a week in July. It'll be like old times." Like old times. The old times where my wife couldn't even go home to her own apartment because this person had made her life hell. I need to explain something about myself. I'm not usually the type to hold grudges. I forgive easily, maybe too easily. My friends joke that I'm a pushover, and they're probably right. But there are some things that cut so deep that forgiveness feels impossible. What she did to my wife wasn't just about jealousy or hurt feelings. It wasn't just that she had feelings for me and was upset when we started dating. I could have understood that. I could have forgiven that. But for 5 months, she systematically tried to destroy my wife's life. She convinced their other roommates that my wife was stealing food from the communal kitchen. She told them my wife was bringing random guys home at all hours, which was a complete lie since my wife was with me most nights. She hid my wife's textbooks before exams. She accidentally broke my wife's favorite mug, the one her grandmother had given her. The worst part was how she did it all with this sweet, innocent act whenever I was around. She'd be perfectly pleasant to my face, asking about my classes, complimenting my shirt, laughing at my jokes. Then the second I left, she'd go back to making my wife's life miserable. I remember the night my wife showed up at my dorm at 2 a.m., sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. She'd tried to take a shower in their shared bathroom, and someone, we both knew who, had turned off the hot water heater. My wife had been hit with ice-cold water and found a note taped to the mirror, "Learn to share." That was when I truly understood what was happening. This wasn't just about me. This was about power, control, and a level of cruelty that genuinely shocked me. My wife ended up spending almost every night in my tiny dorm room. She'd sneak back to her apartment during the day when her friend had classes, just to grab clean clothes or study materials. She lost 15 pounds during those months because she was afraid to eat in her own kitchen. The breaking point came during finals week. My wife found her laptop, with her entire senior thesis on it, missing from her room. It reappeared 3 days later in the living room, with half the hard drive mysteriously corrupted. My wife had to rewrite 2 months of work in 5 days. I wanted to confront her friend directly, but my wife begged me not to. She was terrified it would make things worse. So I watched the person I loved become a shadow of herself, all because someone couldn't handle the fact that I'd chosen my wife over her. Planning our wedding should have been one of the happiest times of our lives. Instead, it became this minefield of anxiety because of one person on the guest list, or rather, one person who wasn't on it. My wife agonized over whether to invite her friend for weeks. She'd bring it up during random moments, while we were grocery shopping, watching TV, brushing our teeth before bed. "Maybe I should invite her," she'd say. "Maybe it would help us move past everything." I tried to be supportive, but every time she mentioned it, I felt this knot in my stomach. I kept imagining our wedding day with her friend there, watching us with that fake smile, probably plotting some way to ruin things. Would she object during the ceremony? Would she get drunk and cause a scene at the reception? Would she corner my wife in the bathroom and say something devastating? The decision was ultimately made for us when my wife ran into her friend on campus. They had what my wife described as a talk at her graduation party, but from what I could piece together, it was more like her friend unloading 2 years of resentment and hurt feelings onto my wife in front of all their mutual friends. After that, the wedding invitation question became moot. They stopped talking entirely. My wife cried for 3 days straight, not because she was happy about cutting ties, but because she felt like she'd lost her best friend all over again. Our wedding was beautiful, but even on that perfect day, I could see my wife scanning the crowd sometimes, like she was looking for someone who wasn't there. For 18 months, we lived in peace. My wife slowly healed from everything that had happened. She made new friends, threw herself into her career, and started laughing again in a way that seemed genuine instead of forced. But she never stopped missing her friend. She'd scroll through old photos on her phone sometimes, stopping at pictures of them from college. She started to tell me a story about something funny that happened at work, then pause and say, she would have thought this was hilarious. I learned to live with being a substitute for that friendship. When my wife needed someone to vent to about her coworkers, I listened. When she wanted to analyze every detail of a conversation she'd had with her boss, I paid attention. When she discovered a new restaurant or movie or book, I was the one she shared it with. Part of me resented being her only close confidant, not because I didn't want to support her, but because I could see how lonely she was. She was an extrovert trying to live an introvert's life, and it was slowly suffocating her. I suggested she join clubs, take classes, put herself out there to meet new people. She tried, but nothing clicked the way her friendship with her college roommate had. They'd lived together for 3 years, shared everything, developed this shorthand way of communicating that my wife had never found with anyone else. So when that text came 3 weeks ago, I wasn't entirely surprised. What surprised me was how quickly everything went back to the way it was before, like those 18 months of silence had never happened. Watching my wife rebuild this friendship has been like watching someone come back to life. She laughs at her phone now. She has inside jokes again. She talks about weekend plans and vacation ideas and all these little details of daily life that she'd stopped sharing with me because she knew I couldn't relate. And I hate that I resent it. I hate that I can't just be happy that my wife is happy. I hate that every time her phone rings and she lights up, I feel this stab of jealousy and anger. Because here's the thing, she's forgiven everything. Completely, totally, like it never happened. When I tried to bring up the past, my wife just said, people change. We were young. It was a complicated situation. Complicated. That's what she calls 5 months of psychological torture. I've tried to be supportive. Why? I really have. I listened when she told me about her friend's new job. I nodded when she explained how her friend had gone to therapy and worked on herself. I even managed to seem interested when she showed me pictures from her friend's recent vacation. But inside, I'm screaming. Because my wife seems to have completely forgotten what this person put her through. She's rewritten the history in her mind, turned it into some kind of misunderstanding between friends who were both hurting. I remember holding my wife while she sobbed about her laptop being sabotaged. My wife apparently remembers it as that stressful time during finals. I remember her losing 15 pounds from anxiety and barely sleeping for weeks. She seems to think of it as when we spent a lot of time at your dorm. I remember watching someone I loved become afraid to exist in her own space. She's chosen to see it as growing pains in our relationship. How do you argue with someone's decision to heal? How do you insist that they hold on to pain when they've found a way to let it go? She's going to stay in the guest room for a week, my wife announced over breakfast last Tuesday. I was pouring coffee, and I stopped mid-pour. What? In July, when you're on that work trip? She wants to visit, and I thought it would be fun to have her stay here. I set the coffee pot down carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. In our house. Where else would she stay? Literally anywhere else. KOEI, tell. An Airbnb. My was dying. Bo. Other was CG's shirt and Airdrie true. Her car. A tent in the backyard. Anywhere but in the guest room. That's 15 feet from our bedroom. In the home that's supposed to be our safe space. I tried to explain how I felt, but my wife looked at me like I was being unreasonable. It's been almost 2 years, she said. And she's changed. You'll see, you'll see. Like, I'm the one who needs to adjust my perspective. Like I'm the one who's being stubborn and unforgiving. The worst part is that my wife genuinely believes everything is fine now. She thinks her friend has transformed into this completely different person who would never hurt her again. She talks about their phone calls like their therapy sessions where her friend has revealed all these insights about herself and her behavior. She knows she was wrong, my wife keeps saying. She's apologized for everything, but here's what my wife doesn't seem to understand. Apologizing doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't undo the months of trauma. It doesn't guarantee it won't happen again. And there's another layer to this that I can barely admit to myself. Part of me wonders if my wife's eagerness to forgive comes from guilt. She ended up with me, after all. She got the guy, the relationship, the marriage. Maybe accommodating her friend now feels like compensation for winning back then. After a week of tense conversations, we reached what my wife calls a compromise. Her friend can visit, but she'll stay in a hotel instead of our guest room. My wife presented this to her friend, who apparently responded with hurt confusion. Why couldn't she stay with us? Didn't we trust her? Was I really that petty about something that happened years ago? My wife relayed these questions to me with obvious frustration. I could tell she thought I was being unreasonable, that I was the problem in this situation. She says it'll be expensive for her to get a hotel for a week, my wife explained. She was counting on staying here to keep costs down. So now I'm not just the unforgiving husband who can't let go of the past. I'm also the selfish one who's forcing my wife's friend to spend money she doesn't have. I suggested we could help pay for the hotel room. My wife perked up at this idea, like it solved everything. But it doesn't solve the real problem, which is that this person is going to be in our lives again, in our city, in our space. Hotel or no hotel, she'll be here for a week, and my wife will want to spend every possible moment with her. I can already see how it's going to go. They'll have breakfast together every morning, lunch dates, long walks around the neighborhood, late-night conversations that go on for hours. My wife will be completely absorbed in this reunion, and I'll be the outsider in my own life. And what happens after that week? If everything goes well, if they have this amazing time together, what's next? Regular visits? My wife flying out to see her? Holidays together? Am I supposed to just accept that this person is going to be a permanent fixture in our lives now? There are things I want to say to my wife that I can't figure out how to voice without sounding like a complete asshole. I want to ask her if she's forgotten about the night she showed up at my dorm room at 2 a.m., sobbing because someone had put salt in her shampoo bottle. I want to ask her if she remembers being afraid to eat food from her own kitchen because she never knew what might be wrong with it. I want to ask her if she's considered that someone who is capable of that level of cruelty might still be capable of it now, just in more subtle ways. I want to ask her what happens if her friend gets jealous again. What happens if she decides she wants me back, or that my wife doesn't deserve the life we've built together? What happens when the novelty of their renewed friendship wears off and old patterns start emerging? But I can't ask any of these questions because my wife has made it clear that bringing up the past is destructive and unhelpful. She's moved on, and she expects me to do the same. The thing is, I'm not sure forgiveness works the way my wife thinks it does. She seems to believe that if you forgive someone completely enough, you can go back to exactly how things were before they hurt you. Like forgiveness is a magic eraser that makes you forget why you needed to forgive in the first place. I think forgiveness is more complicated than that. I think you can forgive someone and still protect yourself from them. I think you can let go of anger without inviting someone back into your life. I think you can wish someone well from a distance without having to trust them with your happiness again. But my wife doesn't see it that way. For her, complete forgiveness means complete reconciliation. It means pretending the past never happened and building a future like nothing went wrong. The hardest part about all of this is how alone I feel in my own marriage. My wife is so caught up in rebuilding this friendship that she can't see how much it's affecting me. Or maybe she can see it, but she's chosen to interpret my discomfort as jealousy or pettiness instead of legitimate concern. I've started having conversations with myself that I wish I could have with her. I imagine telling her about the dreams I've been having where her friend ruins our anniversary dinner, or convinces her to leave me, or moves into our house permanently. I imagine explaining how every time her phone rings, I get this spike of anxiety wondering what new plan they're making that I'll have to go along with. But when I try to bring up these feelings in real life, my wife shuts down. She gets this look on her face like I'm being unreasonable, like my concerns are evidence of some character flaw rather than a natural response to the situation. I don't understand why you can't just be happy for me, she said last night. I got my best friend back. And what could I say to that? How do you explain to someone that their happiness feels like a threat to your peace of mind? How do you tell someone you love that you're afraid they're walking back into a situation that nearly destroyed them the first time? I've thought about talking to a therapist about this, but I'm not sure how to explain it without sounding paranoid or controlling. My wife's friend was mean to her in college, and now they're friends again, and I don't like it. It sounds petty when I put it that way, but it's not petty. It's pattern recognition. It's understanding that people who are capable of systematic emotional abuse don't usually become different people just because time has passed and they've said sorry. Her friend arrived yesterday morning. I was at work when she got to our house, but I could feel the shift in energy the moment I walked through the door that evening. My wife was in the kitchen cooking dinner. Not just any dinner, but an elaborate meal with multiple courses and wine pairings. She was dressed up, wearing the blue dress I bought her for her birthday last year, the one she usually saves for special occasions. "Where is she?" I asked. "Taking a shower. She'll be down in a minute." I stood in my own kitchen feeling like an intruder. The whole house smelled different. Not bad, just unfamiliar. There were 2 wine glasses on the counter, both half empty, which meant they'd already been day drinking together. When her friend came downstairs, I was struck by how normal she looked. Older, obviously. Hair a bit shorter. But the same person who had made my wife's life hell for 5 months. She hugged me like we were old friends, thanked me profusely for letting her stay, complimented our house, asked about my job. It was all so civilized, so pleasant, that for a moment I wondered if I was the one who was wrong. Maybe people really do change. Maybe I was holding on to something that didn't matter anymore. Then I watched her at dinner, and I started to see the subtle things. The way she dominated the conversation, steering every topic back to herself. The way she corrected my wife's memories of shared experiences. The way she made little comments about our house, our food, our life together that seemed complimentary on the surface, but had this underlying edge. "It's so interesting how you've decorated," she said, looking around our dining room. "So different from your style in college. I guess marriage changes people." Or when my wife mentioned her job, "You always were so ambitious. I'm glad you found something that makes you happy, even if it's not what you originally planned." Little digs. Tiny cuts. Nothing my wife seemed to notice, but I saw every single one. It's been 4 days now, and I'm watching history repeat itself in slow motion. My wife has been running around like a cruise director, planning activities, making reservations, trying to ensure her friend has the perfect visit. She's exhausted, but won't admit it. She's spending money we don't really have on outings and meals. She's neglecting everything else in her life to focus on entertaining this person. And her friend is letting it happen. She's not offering to pay for anything. She's not suggesting they just have a quiet night in. She's not acknowledging that my wife is going above and beyond to make her feel welcome. Yesterday I came home to find my wife scrubbing our bathroom, the guest bathroom that her friend has been using. Apparently, there had been some kind of accident with hair dye that stained our bathtub. Her friend had apologized profusely, of course, but somehow, it was my wife who was on her hands and knees trying to fix it. She feels terrible about it, my wife said when she saw my expression. She feels terrible, but not terrible enough to clean it up herself. This morning, her friend made a comment about how she missed having a home-cooked breakfast like the ones my wife makes. So of course, my wife got up an hour early to make pancakes from scratch, with fresh berries and homemade syrup. I sat at our kitchen table, watching my wife serve this elaborate breakfast to someone who had once hidden her textbooks during finals week, and I felt something inside me just break. Not in a dramatic way. More like something that had been holding steady for years, finally gave way under too much pressure. This isn't about forgiveness anymore. This isn't about whether people can change. This is about my wife being so desperate to reclaim this friendship that she's willing to diminish herself all over again. Last night, I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs to get some water and heard voices from the guest room. My wife and her friend were talking, and even though I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I caught enough to understand what was happening. Her friend was crying. Not just crying, sobbing, talking about how sorry she was, how guilty she felt, how she'd never forgiven herself for ruining their friendship. And my wife was comforting her, reassuring her, telling her it was all in the past, that none of it mattered now. I stood in our dark hallway, listening to my wife console the person who had spent months tormenting her, and I finally understood something I'd been trying to avoid. This isn't about her friend changing. This is about my wife needing to believe that people can change, that pain can be undone, that if you just forgive completely enough, you can go back to how things were before everything went wrong. My wife lost her best friend right when our relationship began. For 5 years, she's carried this belief that she caused it somehow, that if she'd handled things differently, they could have both stayed in her life without conflict. Now she has a chance to prove that theory. If she can make this friendship work, if she can integrate her friend back into our lives without any problems, then it means all that pain was unnecessary. It means she didn't have to choose between her friend and me. It means she can have everything. But that's not how life works. Some choices can't be undone. Some relationships can't be salvaged. Some people don't deserve third chances no matter how much we love them. Standing there in the dark, listening to my wife give emotional support to someone who had never shown her the same kindness, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger exactly. More like clarity. I can't control whether my wife wants this person in her life. I can't make her see what I see, or remember what I remember. But I can control how much of myself I give to this situation. This morning, I told my wife I was going to visit my brother for the weekend. Not because I was angry, not because I was punishing anyone, but because I needed space from the dynamic in our house. Now? She asked. While she's here. Yes, I said. Now. I could see she wanted to argue, wanted to convince me to stay, wanted to make this work somehow. But for the first time in weeks, I felt calm. Clear. Bye and Yonzwa. I'm not asking you to choose between us, I told her. I'm just choosing not to participate in this particular reunion. I kissed her goodbye and meant it. I'm not leaving my marriage. I'm not issuing ultimatums. I'm just accepting that some things are beyond my control, and I'm taking responsibility for the things that aren't. My wife can have whatever relationship she wants with her friend. She can forgive whatever she feels ready to forgive. She can invite whoever she wants to our house, and she can believe whatever she needs to believe about people's capacity for change. But I don't have to pretend to be comfortable with it. I don't have to smile and make small talk with someone who spent months trying to destroy my wife's mental health. I don't have to watch my wife exhaust herself trying to prove that everything is fine now. Driving away from our house this morning, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. I'm writing this from my brother's guest room, where I've been for 2 days now. My phone has been mostly quiet. A few texts from my wife asking how I'm doing, letting me know they're having a good time, telling me she misses me. Nothing dramatic. Nothing angry. Just normal life happening in my absence. My brother hasn't asked many questions about why I'm here. He's good that way. But yesterday evening, over beers on his back porch, he said something that stuck with me. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is just remove yourself from a situation that isn't working for you. He wasn't talking about leaving permanently. He wasn't talking about running away from problems. He was talking about recognizing when you're not required to participate in someone else's choices. I've spent weeks feeling like I had to either accept the situation completely or fight against it completely. It never occurred to me that I could just step aside. Today, my wife called to tell me that her friend's flight got delayed, so she'll be staying an extra day. In the past, this information would have made my stomach clench with dread. Now I just said, okay, I'll see you when I see you. Because here's what I've realized. My wife's friendship with this person isn't actually about me. It's about her need to heal something that was broken years ago. It's about her desire to believe that forgiveness can fix everything. It's about her fear of being the kind of person who holds grudges. I can't take any of that away from her, and I was wrong to try. But I also don't have to sacrifice my own peace of mind to support her in this particular journey. I'm driving home tomorrow. My wife's friend will be gone by then, back to her own life, 2 states away. I don't know what happens next. Maybe they'll stay close friends from a distance. Maybe they'll drift apart again. Maybe her friend will visit regularly, or maybe this was a one-time reunion that gave them both the closure they needed. What I do know is that I'm not responsible for managing my wife's relationships or protecting her from people who might hurt her. I'm not required to like everyone she likes or forgive everyone she forgives. My job is to love my wife, and I do. I love her enough to let her make her own choices, even when I disagree with her. I love her enough to be honest about my own boundaries, even when it creates tension. I love her enough to trust that she can navigate her own relationships, even when I think she's making mistakes. That doesn't mean I have to pretend everything is fine when it's not. It doesn't mean I have to participate in situations that make me uncomfortable. It doesn't mean I have to forget the past just because my wife has chosen to. What it means is that I can love someone without controlling them. I can protect my own peace without punishing them for their choices. I can disagree without creating ultimatums. 5 years ago, when my wife was crying in my dorm room at 2 a.m., I learned what it meant to protect someone. Today, I'm learning what it means to let them protect themselves. The friend is gone now. The visit is over. Tomorrow, my wife and I will start figuring out what our life looks like with this new dynamic in it. I don't have all the answers. I'm not sure if her friend has really changed, or if she's just gotten better at hiding her true nature. I don't know if their friendship will last, or if it will implode spectacularly in a few months. But I do know this: I can't spend my life waiting for other people to hurt my wife. I can't build walls around our relationship to keep out everyone who might cause problems. I can't control the past, and I can't prevent the future. All I can do is love her today, be honest about who I am today, and trust that whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. And if her friend does hurt her again, I'll be there to help her heal, just like I was 5 years ago. Not because I told her so, not because I was right all along, but because that's what love is. Sometimes love means standing together against the world. Sometimes it means standing apart within the same space. Both are okay. Both are enough.